as you start sort of getting up towards the top, I realized quite quickly that this is going to be a bit of a special descent as such. And I've got to say though, it's I'm not one to complain about a technical, interesting descent as such, and usually like it quite fast and twisty, etc. But with this one, I was struggling to keep control of my bike. It's greasy, it's wet, it's narrow. Literally, if you take your fingers off your brakes for more than a second, you basically increase that much in speed that you won't be able to slow down in enough for the next turn. The turns are very, very, very tight as well, and obviously because the road is so narrow, you've got nowhere really to sort of drift out on the apex. And the first sort of 4 or 5 kilometers of this descent is literally like that. We're looking at probably around about 10 to 15% descent in steepness. And once you've negotiated that one, hopefully successfully, I'm really hoping so for the rider's sake, because I think if anyone really decides that they're going to have a go on the way down this part, they're more likely to end up in the vegetation than going actually down the road in a safe manner. Once you come down off this really narrow road, you come out onto a bigger road, and then all of a sudden you got about 1.5 kilometers, maybe 2 kilometers of quite a steep climb. After that, then on reasonably wide roads, not too technical. It's got some big sweeping bends on it until round about 5 kilometers to go, where all of a sudden you've got 2 tight switchbacks with 4 kilometers to go. Then all of a sudden it just dips down again, and it's 13% for about 2-3 kilometers, and I'm talking 95 to 100 kilometers an hour down there in the wet as well. If you know it, then you will be able to just about let go of the brakes. There's nothing really that's going to cause you to have to slam on the brakes or really sort of be too wary about, and it's literally a straight run in all the way into the finish line then. So really, I think the winner today is going to come from someone who's got 2 big ones and is quite happy to sacrifice an awful lot and put an awful lot on the line to win it.
Well, the next question for you, Magnus, is, out of this front group of 9 riders, I think there's a lot of riders with, as you say, 2 big ones. We've seen them in big classic stage before. That's the type of rider generally who's got in the break here, perhaps save Wilco Kelderman. It's going to be very interesting to see who's going to give it a go. We know that Hayden Ralston, who won that sprint there, has been talking up himself in the classics in the last few years, saying that his big aim in his career now is to take one big win, and he's going to give it all. Would he be the man to have a go on a day like this? Who can get up the climb and do it if this group's going to stay up?
Yeah, that is the question. I mean, I would put Gilbert down as a bit of a favourite on that one, because he does climb very well and he is very good and technical on the bike as well. I don't think really that there is anyone else who, well, Boonen, if he can stay with these guys, then he's certainly technical and good enough on the descent to handle his bike and to certainly be one of the best guys down the mountain. But like I said, on this particular part of the descent, there is literally one speed that you can go, and you can't really go any faster than that, and really it's not really possible to go any slower either, because you'd be walking at that point. And I mean, I tried a couple of times to let go and to sort of see if I could pick up some pace and take the corners in, just see what it would be like at race pace. And I can tell you, race pace isn't much quicker than what I was doing with a little bit of a safety margin.
Well, it's funny, before we had a look at that final circuit, before the weather came down like it was, one man who we were talking up to have a go on the descent today was Ryder Haysdale, and unfortunately, of course, we've seen him go out. How big a blow is today's crash? Of course, not really knowing the full extent of his injuries, but if he is to be okay and recover, how big a blow is crashing out of this race leading up to the Tour de France?
Well, it's certainly not a good thing, If he'd finished the Giro, then I would have said, yeah, don't worry too much about it. But because he didn't go all the distance in the Giro, I think a 10-day stage race or a 9-day stage race here would sit quite nicely in his preparations going into the Tour de France. In saying that, he's race sharp. We could see that yesterday, and I don't really think, as long as he's not being set back for you know, weeks on end here now, you know, then I think he will be all right by the time we get to the Tour de France, and certainly be able to kind of ride himself into the Tour as such in the first week. Although, you know, the first 2 days are, you know, on Corsica, it's a little bit on the technical side, but there's nothing really there to sort of worry the riders too much in terms of having to use, you know, big horsepower on the climb and whatever. So I think he's got a few days to kind of find his top end again before they start climbing in the Tour de France. So it's certainly not a good thing for him, but it could be worse. But I just hope that he's all right, because you know, it's never nice when if a rider has to go to a hospital, then usually in this sport it means that something has gone quite seriously wrong. Because I mean, if you follow cycling, you've probably seen these guys. They come down and they take an awful lot of skin off, and it's going to take pretty much a break of some sort for them to actually consider not getting back on the bike. And I mean, we know a few riders in the past who've even got back on the bike with broken bones, you know, and that's just how tough these guys are. So, yeah, like I said, I hope the rider is okay.
Well, man who went down yesterday, we saw there Fabian Wegmann, the only man to crash on the ascent to Crans Montana. The man who won yesterday was Bauke Mollema. Turns out that on studying the evidence later on in the evening, he was bought, let's say, a very expensive drink by his team car. Unfortunately, Bauke Mollema was spotted accepting a bottle in the last 20 kilometres of yesterday's stage. That has cost him 200 Swiss francs, but it's not the money he'll be worrying about. It's the 20 bonus seconds, or the 20 penalty seconds, I should say, that have been chopped off his time. That leaves him now 9th on GC, 34 seconds down on the leader camera.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of expensive drinks, but 200 Swiss francs, you know, that, come on.
Even by Swiss standards.
And even it has to be some pretty quality energy drink for you to spend 200 Swiss francs on a bottle. But no, certainly the 20-second bonus penalty seconds, sorry. They are probably what he's more worried about, and is obviously going to be quite upset about. But you know, a rider of his stature should know better. You know, the commissaires are nowadays there are motorbikes and cars, and you know, we obviously got the images to watch as well. So if you're one of the top riders, you're unlikely to be able to kind of take one and kind of do it hiding it, you know. So yeah, it's I think they went for a bit of a cheeky one, but that was it.
Well, they got caught. Good news is the riders out front aren't going to be caught before they get through the finish line. That is, if they're going to be caught whatsoever. Just heading in now to the finish line for the only passage before the finish itself. You can see 500 metres to go. Hayden Roston for Radio Shack Leopard leading them in, as well as Michael Albazzini. He could be a very, very interesting man to watch as they go up here. The I Am rider, of course, Martin Elmiger, and Johan van Summen, another tough rider as well. And here they come, Bonen and Gilbert, alongside Nicky Terpstra. It is a deluxe lineup in the 9-man break. 2 minutes and 6 seconds is the advantage then as they go across the line. In the saddle for 3 and almost 3/4 hours. And listen to the noise. Great crowds in despite the bad weather. It is quite a peculiar little place, in fact, Meiringen. It said right at the top of the broadcast, it is the birthplace of the meringue dessert. We saw plenty of those on sale today in the cafes around town. Also home to a Sherlock Holmes themed hotel and museum, quite bizarrely, that the riders are about to ride past now. And surrounded, of course, by peaks of outstanding natural beauty. Actually,
when I was walking down here after coming back from the bike, having got changed, I saw a man walking down there. I had to take a second sort of take. Literally looked like it was Sherlock Holmes walking down the street.
It might have been the guy who walked in the museum, but on his cigarette break or something.
It could have been.
Or I should say his pipe break.
Yeah, pipe break, yeah. I've got to say, I was just spotting the breakaway group going past there, and noticed one thing. Tom Bonen is looking very, very sharp. Probably the leanest I've seen him in some time. He looked very, very good.
Well, he got his first win since last year, in fact.
Yeah.
Just the other week as well. He had that nasty crash in Flanders after it really wasn't on it the first part of the season. Of course, had 2 spells in hospitals over the winter. Not a nice time for him whatsoever. All sorts of infections and broken bones as well. He's recovered, and as you say, looking very good at the minute. Now, a lot of pressure today on Orica Green Edge. Yesterday, Cameron Meyer was left a little isolated towards the top of the climb to Cron Montana. How do you think that his team is going to get on today, protecting the yellow jersey? Remember, of course, Heistal now out the race, so that 3-second gap has gone, but still only 5 seconds to the next man.
Yeah, it is, but I don't think they've got to worry too much about this. Obviously, they're just going to police things now because they've got Albazini in the front group, and Albazini, I mean, he does climb well. He's technically quite good. He's fast in a sprint as well, so you know, I think he should be quite happy in that front group as such.
Well, one man they will want to watch out for in the front group is Wilco Kelderman. He is the virtual leader on the road at the minute, 53 seconds back on general classification. Is that a gap that can be maintained, do you think, towards the end of this race today?
Well, it's certainly a possibility, but what we've got to think about here as well at this given point is, from this moment, they got about 16 kilometers left of racing, like of proper pedaling racing. After that is a question of, again, whether you got the bottle to drop down the other side or not, and ultimately it doesn't really come down whether you got the bottle to do it or not. It's actually whether you got the technical capability of staying upright, and I think, you know, basically get Cameron Meyer to the top, and then after that it's down to him whether he stays with the front guys or not, and how close to getting to these guys. So the next sort of 15 kilometers is really down. It's going to be how big a gap they're going to leave them, whether they bring it back 2 minutes on the climb like the one that we've got coming up. It's quite tough in places, I've got to say.
I was going to say, tell us a bit about the climb, of course, and in relation to the guys that are out there on the road at the minute. This climb, what can it do for the different types of riders? Of course, we've got a general selection of riders who are good on one day, but all with their distinct capabilities in slightly different ways as well. Here are the stats of the first climb.
Yeah.
Fourth category, 2.3 kilometers long, maximum 6, average of 4.7. As you say, it's not an easy one.
No, it's not an easy climb, but it does roll quite nicely anyway. I went on the big ring up it earlier. Felt like a 53, 20, 21, 23 on the back maybe was, you know, I felt quite happy on that. So it's not too much to worry about. It's when you come down the other side and you sort of go through a bit of a valley, nice and flat for a little bit, and then you start climbing on a biggish road. Once you turn off that road is when it starts getting steep, and it gets really quite steep in places where I was struggling on what was my smallest gear, which is 39-23. I expect these guys to have probably about a 25, maybe even 27 on the back, so they'll be able to pedal it a little bit easier. But it's so narrow, you're going to have to push yourself to get into the bottom of that front row, because I'd probably put that 3, maybe 4 riders abreast at max, and that's going to be a squeeze. So you know, it's literally just a little bit more than a car width, but it goes up in stages, and the final sort of 2 kilometers or so, they are really quite hard.
35 kilometers to go. This is the lead group. Just to remind you, they are Kelderman of Blanco, Philippe Gilbert, the world champion riding for BMC. Orica Green Edge is Michael Albazini, who's riding at home. Tom Bonen, the Belgian champion for Omega Pharma Quickstep. His teammate, Nicky Terpstra, in the Dutch national champion's jersey. Hayden Ralston is there, with the Kiwi champions jersey on his back for Radio Shack Leopard. Matti Breschel, the Dane, is riding there as well for Blanco. Van Summeren is there, as is Martin Elmiger for I Am Cycling.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting when we get down this over the top here of this KOM as well, because it's quite a fast sort of start to this little descent off the 4th category climb, and then you've got 2 real tight switchbacks coming into it as well. So again, you know, already now the guys need to sort of start getting the feel for the grip level on the road and see what's possible to do. Although I've got to say, looking at them coming through a couple of the roundabouts, Bonen was looking very comfortable going around there in the wet.
Well, as you say, this is where the racing is going to happen now, before the top. A couple of switchbacks. on this descent from the 4th category climb. Remember, the 1st category climb is the main event of the day as far as racing uphill is concerned. Elmiger slightly off the back here, but not going to be a problem given the fact that they're on the short descent. The gap has gone down by around 25 seconds now, 1 minute and 40. Interesting, it almost came back together again, and it was coming back together and there were 18 men in the break. Then this crash happened, there was a bit of confusion. These 9 men got away, and that is after earlier on there was a very, very early break as well.
Yeah, Saxo on the front here, they're obviously pushing it quite hard. Daniele Benati taking a nice big turn as well. So, you know, the guys have obviously realised that we need to bring these back now. We can't leave them too far out there, because if they get over the top of this climb, we're likely to not see the likes of Bonin and Gilbert and you know, whoever else has got to decide to come down the other side in the fast.
Well, the yellow jersey of Cameron Meyer just hidden to the left of that shot there. It's being done very, very well, this job at the minute, by Benati and Saxo Tinkoff, as you can see some of the beautiful, beautiful bits of rock formation and mountain around here. Again, we were remarking in the car driving over this morning, surprises you every day, this country. It's absolutely stunning, even with poor weather like this.
Yeah, we're 2 proper tourists in the car, there we are.
Now, a bit of housekeeping to do. 3 points for Tom Bonin at the top of that King of the Mountains climb there, 4th category. So only 3 points dished out to the winner. Van Summeren in 2nd place with 2. Now, Elmiger, we saw him hanging on a minute ago, but the gap seems to be growing.
Well, he's kind of yo-yoing off the back just a little bit. Obviously not quite comfortable on the around the corners, but you know, he does climb quite well, so he might be able to pull himself a little bit of a gap and at least get down off that really narrow part of the main descent, and then you know, he should be all right after that to follow them down, really.
33 kilometres and 1 minute 25 at the moment. I mentioned a moment ago, just before we saw that image of Saxo Bank really pulling things on the front, that there was a very early break today. Just to name those people who are in the break for the first hour or so of racing, there was Stefan Denif of I Am Cycling, Jesus Herrada of Movistar, and of course Damiano Caruso, the rider we saw from Cannondale. Now, sprint number 2. Riders don't really have that on their mind here. This is for the blue jersey, of course, the Haribo jersey that today is on the back of Enrique Sanz. Nothing to worry about, though. These guys want to concentrate on keeping this gap as big as it can be at the minute.
Yeah, obviously, you know, a rider like Albacini, he's out there in the front group and kind of protecting Cameron Meyer's yellow jersey a bit. You know, if there's a group that comes across to this breakaway with Cam Meyer in it, then obviously it's nice for Cam to have a teammate up there, although they're not really going to be able to do much, because once you get off the main descent, it's only a kilometre into the finish. Now
look at this, Cameron Meyer sandwiched between riders from Saxo Bank and BMC. Where's the rest of his team?
Yeah, one could wonder that, really. Obviously, if the pressure has been on up that climb, and Orica Greenwich have worked all day, that looks like we've got one of his teammates, that Impey, coming up there. But again, you know, you can see what the damage does on the way down. Just a short little descent. Okay, it's technical, but it's not that bad. And straight away, it just splits up the peloton. So we're going to probably see the GC classification going a little bit, sort of being thrown around a bit in terms of who's going to be able to stay up there. A couple of guys maybe getting caught out, and again, I'd be surprised if everyone stays upright on that climb. I seriously hope they do, but I would be really surprised.
Well, we'll wait to see what happens. Just a reminder of the general classification coming into today's stage. Cameron Meyer leading rider Heystal by 3 seconds. Heystal, as you've already reported, unfortunately has been taken to hospital after crashing out. Matthias Frank, who is fairly local to this area, so should know the route and roads very well, is in 3rd place. He's 5 seconds off. Gio Visconti in 4th, and Thibaut Pinot, who is 16 seconds back, in 5th place. They're the immediate people of danger, really, for Cam Meyer. Here's Nicky Terpstra, just off the back slightly. Elmiger, as you said, climbing decently, and just on the wheel of Tom Bonin there. In front of Bonin is Hayden Ralston, Johan van Summeren, Philippe Gilbert, and this, of course, is Breschel.
Yeah, this is the first part of the climb. It's on a reasonably sort of largish road. Gradient is not too bad. You get up to go through a little tunnel, and then it levels out for a little bit, and then all of a sudden you turn left off this road onto the main part of the climb. You see Albacini is certainly putting a bit of pressure on there. Kelderman following quite easily. Looks like the rest of the guys are having to work quite hard to stay with those two guys. Bonen's gone.
Bonen off then. Somebody off the front here as well for Argos Shimano. BMC for Matthias Frank. Tom Bonen, despite looking very, very good before, just drifting back. Teammate Niki Terpstra just in front of him. Not a good sign for Bonen and Terpstra to both be going so early in the climb.
No, definitely not. I mean, we haven't really started the proper part of the climb yet, so this is just a little, should we call it a bonus bit?
And they really have gone. Jörg Preidler is the rider for Argos Shimano. Attempting to try and get out in front. At the minute, not really managing to create a huge gap. But BMC continue to set their own pace. 4 or 5 riders there. We said yesterday we were a little disappointed with TJ van Garderen. Matthias Frank was their main man. And I assume they'll be attempting to do the same with him again today.
Yeah, you know, having 2 riders up there in the general classification is always a good thing. And, you know, I won't say we're disappointed with TJ. He was still there or thereabouts. You know, he was very close to the front. So we shouldn't take too much away from him. But certainly we're probably expecting him to be at the very, very pointy end, challenging for a podium place on yesterday's stage. But just didn't seem like either he didn't want to at this time. You know, early on in the race, go and sort of try and put himself into the yellow jersey, or it was just that little bit not quite on top of his game yesterday.
So Georg Preidler of Austria and Argos Shimano advancing away for the peloton at the moment. Martin Kohler second wheel, and this is the Hasliberg then. Goes over at 1,395 meters, 11.7 kilometers long, height difference of 770 meters, a maximum of 9.6, average of 6.6. But I think we were discussing earlier, now that you've been at, you might be able to confirm that because there's a slight flat section in the middle, it might throw the gradient average down a little, and it's a little harder than perhaps it seems.
Well, it's certainly, I would say, a higher grade average than 6.6. Oh, Gilbert is having a bit of a tough one here as well. But yeah, you actually have 2 sections which descend a little bit in the middle of this climb. So, you know, yeah, I would say that it's certainly steeper than 6.6%.
Big moment here for Philippe Gilbert. This group about to fracture even more, and Gilbert to me looks, I'm afraid now, like he's almost gone. That gap growing all the time between him and Van Summeren, who himself is just hanging on for dear life at the back. Elmiger comfortably in the group. And Hayden Rolston's still up there with him.
Yeah, and Brescia, obviously.
1 minute 23 now between the group in front and this group behind. Still BMC doing the work on the front. 30 kilometers to go. Preidler still out in front. Now it's a couple of 100 meters. See the giant frame of Marcus Burkhardt doing some work at the front as well for BMC. Preidler, a big man too, doing his best. Comes from over the border in Austria. And this is the front of the race. Wilco Kelderman setting a very, very good tempo, and you probably think he's the best climber in this group here.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's between him and Albacini really in terms of climbing pace, but it's fun to see that you know, Albacini swung off the front there, and Kelderman was quite happy to take up the pace, but then the rest of the guys were kind of going, Albacini, you need to get back in there, man, because we're not taking a turn at this pace.
Philippe Gilbert riding at his own pace, but having looked like he was struggling a minute ago.
It just looked like he was bouncing around with his back wheel a little bit, whether he's got problems with the gears, obviously electronic gear. Oh, he has actually lost, it looked like he's lost the cable going into his rear mech.
It didn't seem to be able to change as well. You could hear the gears attempting to click through. And Philippe Gilbert could be having a real mechanical problem here. Looks behind, wants a bit of support. Question is, how close is the team car?
Yeah, that's the problem, whether he's got a team car behind him, and obviously, you know, there are neutral service cars as well, so you can get one of those bikes, but he's not going to want to do that because it's not his setup. And you know, if you end up on a bike which isn't set up right for you, on a climb of 10, 11 kilometers, with the pressure they're putting onto the pedals, they're likely to actually injure themselves because they're so used to sitting in one specific position on their bikes and everything is set up. You know, if you have a problem with your bike, like your saddle slips down just a little bit, I'm talking a millimeter or two, there are riders who will start feeling that straight away. And with that, you know, if you can at all avoid taking someone else's bike or a neutral service bike, then that's pretty much what you will try to do. Ooh, that was close, getting the rain cape in the back wheel.
That wouldn't have been fun. I think it was Roberto Ferrari down there at the back. Long locks to give away at the back of the helmet. Saxobank still setting a good pace here. Just attempting to work for Roman Kreuziger this week. Do have Peschel up the front. Asher Dessert as well, with several decent contenders. The team winning the team prize, incidentally, at the moment, after yesterday, is I Am Cycling. Swiss team.
Yeah.
Put themselves all in decent positions. They have Johan Schopp and Sebastian Heichenbach in 21st and 18th position at 56 and 48 seconds, respectively. Several other decent riders not too far away, so they had a half-decent day yesterday. Lögqvist and Wies just over a minute each. And they'll be hoping to try and put as many riders as possible up there too. There's Andy Schleck in the group at the moment. Some loose pace yesterday. So several suggestions on Twitter and forums and several newspaper pieces suggesting that it might be a good idea for him to forego the Tour de France and change objective to the World Tour. Would you agree with that?
I think that actually would be a good thing, because
certainly less pressure over there in Spain.
Would be less pressure over there. He'd give himself a little bit more time to get himself onto top form, and you know, although July is a funny month because we've got the Tour de France, there's very few other bike races on there, but he will certainly be able to go away and train hard for another for the month of July, come back in, do Tour of Poland maybe, and then start the Vuelta straight after that. So I think that probably would be a good idea for him, and then come back next year and have a proper go at the Tour again. 6
riders left in the leading group: Ralston, Van Summeren, Elmiger, Breschel, Albazini, and of course Wilco Kelderman.
Yeah, and we're on the proper part of the climb here now. The road is just going to get tighter and tighter all the way up to the top from this moment on.
Well, 1 minute 16 is the gap back to the yellow jersey of Cameron Meyer. And just as you were suggesting here, the road really does seem to narrow out. Not much room for vehicles to go past. And again, 2, 3, 4 riders abreast maximum. It would suggest, though, with the rhythm they're going behind in the peloton, that they're going to be fairly strung out anyway.
Yeah, I think they would be, and you know, they're just turning off the main road here onto the proper part of the climb, and I guess we'll see what's going to happen here in the first part of this. Whether, you know, we get attacked straight away, because it's certainly not a bad idea to if you got the legs to go, then, you know, go from the bottom, put some distance between yourself and the rest of the guys, and with that, you know, you can potentially take it a little bit easier and a little bit, you know, have a little bit of a safety buffer going down the other side.
It's all too much at the minute for Johan Van Summeren. Really trying to grind through the gears, but he's losing ground all the time. Same can be said of Ralston, who's now on the pedals and doesn't look to be moving too much at all.
No, that's legs are properly gone there for those 2 riders. That, you know, it's a question of making it, just getting to the top and making it home now for them.
Breschel looks around. In the meantime, Bonen and Terpstra are back in the peloton, being led at the minute by Lampre, who had two very, very good rides yesterday in the shape of Ulissi and Scarponi, both riders who could be real bets for the podium here this week.
Yeah, I think that they could probably do something great, but you know, it's a long way to go until next Sunday.
Certainly is today, given the weather conditions, given what's happening, perhaps a key day. Scarponi is in third or fourth wheel here, making his way to the front. Game looked good yesterday, always willing to give it a go, Michele Scarponi. Not too far behind him, a couple of Movistar riders. Remember, they are defending the title won by Rui Costa last year. And Tamo Kanga, first real look we've had of him today. Around the 15th to 20th place in that Estonian Champions jersey. Astanawa, in fact, doing a lot of the work to try and close things down before this climb began, so there must be a reason, and that reason must be that he's feeling good.
Yeah, it probably is, yeah. I mean, if you can put some pressure on a few people here, and certainly on this narrow road as well, you know, it's not easy to make your way past, and
Scarponi and Kreuziger just having a look at each other there. Sachs are still with men in numbers at the front there. Scarponi's lieutenant Stortoni in the meantime drops back.
Nicolas Roche getting onto the front there, though, is getting a few directives from Kreuziger as to what to do and how hard to go, maybe. Obviously, they've still got Matti Breschel up here, who seems to be climbing quite well, actually.
Breschel just hanging on the back and has never really looked in difficulty so far going up. He's certainly not had to grind things through like a couple of other strugglers we've seen. Kelderman maintains his rhythm, and of course Albazini always hunched over the bars.
I think Breschel is probably one of these. He's a little bit underrated as a rider, I feel. You know, he's pulled off some cracking rides in the past, and you know, always seems to be, you know, there or thereabouts when it's a sort of tough, relatively tough type of stage. Then you know, he's always there fighting it out.
Last one last year at the Vuelta Burgos, and of course a former bronze medalist at the World Champs. Silver medalist too, a couple of years later. So he has very, very good form, and as you say, he's pulled off some big rides.
Yeah, and on completely different types of courses as well.
Marcel Wies strolling off the back of the peloton. That's big news for IM Cycling. And Philippe Gilbert still with problems, still hasn't made it back to the team car. As you say, it's going to be struggling for them to get up and have a chat here.
Yeah, I wonder what's happened to Philippe Gilbert's bike, because he just looked like he completely lost the wire as it is. It's not really a cable anymore with the electronic gearing systems, but it just looked like that was completely gone, whether it got caught in the wheel or whatever's happened. You know, it's there we go. Andy Schleck is now tailing off as well.
That time of the day again. Well, we had brief glimpses in the Tour of California, but again, with the level of competition there being so much weaker, then you've got to take that with a pinch of salt, really. I'm afraid it's becoming a regular occurrence. Johan van Summeren dropping back and being eaten up by the peloton. It's going to be a painful ride to the top for him now. Just about getting there. Roche and Kreuziger.
You can see how cold it is on this climb as well now. You know, you can almost see the when they're breathing the. Should we call it smoke? It's not really, there's mist coming out of them. Obviously not. Suggesting they're having a smoke on the bike.
Now that's a good ride. Look on the right hand side there. Peter Sagan still at the front. Remember, last year at the start of this race, he won 3 out of the first 4 stages. Quite a phenomenal performance. He took 4 out of the 9 in the end. Before today happened, I was going to ask you, today, is it too hard for him? We thought it might be, but it certainly doesn't look like it is at the minute.
Well, I think because his climb goes in stages all the time, he's got opportunities to just get a little bit of a respite and just, you know, pedal his legs out. And I think unless they're really putting the hammer down, he might just be able to get over this. And technically, you know, he's incredible. So he should certainly be there right at the very pointy end when they get off the mountain.
I don't think there's much fear there as well. He's a pretty
No, he seems
cocky lad, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. We could call that an understatement, really.
We've seen demonstrations of it in all sorts of different ways, in inverted commas, this year. Now 4 leaders up the top still. Kelderman is in the Blanco kit, just leads them. Albazzini not far behind. Breschel still hanging in the back, but not looking at all in trouble. And Elmiger quietly going along in 3rd positions too. But look, 36 seconds and not far away off those behind, being able to see those in front.
No, they'll spot them now coming across the switchbacks here. You know, they're just coming past the 25 km to go sign, which is just around this corner. Is a house right there, and they basically put the 25k to go sign in their garden. So
Saxo Bank VMC so close to the front. Thibaut Pinot of La Française des Jeux not far away. Tanak Kanga as well. And Agid of Dezer, I should say, I have a couple of riders in there. Pozzo Vivo being one of them. It is not an easy day out there. Being made all the harder at the moment by the excellent pace being put on the front of this race by Team Saxo Tinkoff. There's Rui Costa, Scarponi not far away behind. Kanga, like we told you as well. So Yuan Chop wearing the number 191. Just behind him, Reichenbach. 63 is Dan Martin. He'll now be the de facto team leader and sole team leader of Garmin. Perhaps thought he was anyway, but of course he had Heidal with him.
Yeah, and of course yesterday's move then by Heidal has just gotten that little bit worse in terms of Dan Martin's aspirations for this race. You know, he was going great guns, and Ryder went past him, back to him.
Now action up the front. Suddenly, perhaps those in the break have realised what's going on behind, and Albazzini puts on the pace. He's now in front, and suddenly Ryder's dropping off the back. The minute Cameron Meyer stays with the best. Visconti just to the left of him, and Sky's performer there is Josh Edmondson.
Yeah, Cam is just labouring a little bit here. He's just drifting in that little bit and trying to sort of hold on to you know, the wheel in front of him, but it certainly didn't look like he was super comfortable. This guy though, Michael Albazzini, he's a fighter. This guy, you know, I raced with him back in Liquid Gas, and he was a gritty type of rider already then, but he's just become even more of a fighter once he moved across to HGC a couple of years ago. He really found his way and has since then, you know, gone great guns and really improved every year. And he's, you know, he's quite a stocky, quite a strong built rider. He's not, it doesn't exactly look like a climber as such.
Albazzini trying to hand over his glasses, just throw them away. Yeah. He's not going to ask for them back at the end, is he?
He probably would, actually. Some riders that I know are quite specific with their sunglasses and that. You got your lucky pair and all that, you know. And yeah. BMC
working hard at the front to try and close this in. Within 19 seconds now.
Interesting there. TJ's just gone to the front to set the tempo there.
Again, Matthias Frank with the result yesterday. And look,
Cam Meyer is losing the wheel.
In the meantime, Kelderman is going to be caught. All sorts happening here, and the main thing that you can see from this is that it is a real possibility that Meyer is going to be stripped of his yellow jersey today. This, in the meantime, is Ulissi, and he himself losing a lot of ground. So that will leave Michele Scarponi as the definite leader for the rest of the week, I'm sure, for Lampre. He's the man who is fourth wheel here, just on the wheel of Roman Kreuziger and right next to Rui Costa. Meyer, in the meantime, dropping back to the group that includes Maxime Montfort and Ulissi just behind him. Simon Geske is the rider from Argos Shimano. And Van Garderen still continues to set the pace on the front for Matthias Frank. Sagan staying in the group. This is a tremendous ride from the Slovakian.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're looking at the climbing capability of some of the riders that are going out the back, you know, and he's still pedaling away in there, kind of looking He's labouring, that's for sure, but you know, he's still very comfortable.
Just look at the group he's with. He's in esteemed climbing company, the likes of Scarponi. You've seen Kreuziger there. And look at the guys dropping out the back. Ulisi, a stage race contender of the future, he's continually touted.
Yeah, Maxime Montfort there as well. You know, it's certainly it's a few good climbers and GC riders that Sagan is now just, you know, climbing away from. And we've asked this question in the past, but where is the limit with Peter Sagan? What can't he do is probably the easier question to ask.
One of the questions that people have asked is about GC for the future for him. Personally, my opinion at the minute is the definite no. Would not want him to lose that sprint, not want him to lose that exciting racing that really lights up the early part of the season for us.
Well, I think if he just keeps on going for stage wins and keeps on racing the way he is, I mean, he's incredibly entertaining to watch, and as far as I'm concerned anyway, I absolutely love the man. And you know, if he starts to focus too much on the GC, then all of a sudden we're going to stop seeing these good attacks that he puts in, and he's just a racer, you know. And when you've got to start doing GC, then you have to control yourself. You've got to back off, you've got to calculate and all this stuff, and that's when we lose the personality and the how should we put it, like the flamboyant type of riding that he does have.
It's great to watch. We've seen it all this spring. He's been the talk of the peloton, the talk of the fans, the talk of the world of cycling. The talk of the last couple of days is losing his place as race leader as we speak. Cameron Meyer just needs to make sure he consolidates on what he has and does the best job available. This is great work, by the way, by TJ Van Garderen. Not a long way from the main descent. There's still another 5Ks to go before it tops over, but there's a bit of a descent here before they climb again now.
It just dropped down for maybe 400 meters, 500 meters, and then straight away you swing in very, very sharp left. Climbs up a little bit again, and you got a couple of nasty little turns, and then you start climbing up towards the final part of well, up towards the GPM point.
Still Van Garderen on the front. Just behind him, Frank, Kreuziger, Rui Costa, Scarponi, Sagan, yes, Peter Sagan. Thibaut Pinot, Kanga is there as well, as is Spilak, Dan Martin in as two. Then it's Jan Brajkovic right at the back of that group. So, climbing again for another 5 kilometers, and then is the descent where we really have to watch things out and hope that everybody stays upright and safe, regardless of who you might want at home to take the stage win.
Yeah, definitely. It goes uphill here for about a K and a half or so, and then you drop down a little bit again with a couple of technical little turns, and then we start climbing properly up towards the King of the Mountain point.
Well, it's a shame that Michael Albertini's gone out the back of that front group now. Talking to Sven Montgomery, the Swiss-German cycling expert and former rider himself, saying that he saw Albertini in the break today. He was getting excited. He says Switzerland really needs a win from someone else that isn't Fabian Cancellara. The sport needs more exposure, and he'll be the perfect man to do it. Of course, he said he often wins in races that aren't televised in Switzerland, like the Volta Catalunya and things like that. He needs big wins at home. Good news is, in that little bit of descent, he's back on the front group, but again, it's not going to be easy for him after all the effort he's put in earlier on the day.
Here we go, there's a couple of tight little turns. This is very much like what you're going to see for the rest of the, well, the big descent as well, in terms of width of road and how tight and twisty it actually is.
Albertini then just hanging on the back. Still Van Garderen.
I reckon we might see a solo win by the man in third wheel here today.
Well, he's thinking about it now, making sure he's in the right place. It's funny, I was almost not going to ask you the question today because I thought it was sincerely too hard for him. But seeing as he's there, we certainly have to talk about him. Cannondale, who yesterday, on Sunday in the Dauphiné, picked up their 14th win of the season. Alessandro De Marchi soloing away for 140 kilometres. Absolutely wonderful to see. Of those 14 wins, guess who's got the most?
Well, it's Peter Sagan by probably, I think if they won 14 races a year, I reckon he's taken 10 of them.
You'll be exactly right. And there he is, preparing his latest attack, looking for number 11 of the season. Took 2 in California, there were his last wins. Wasn't quite fully on the money there, as you might expect, but he'd just come back off a break after his busiest and most successful classic season yet. In terms of the main men and the overall, Scarponi's still in the middle. To me, he's looked very fresh and very, very good over the last 2 days climbing.
Yeah, it certainly has done. This is quite a steep part of this climb, actually. The last sort of 2.5 kilometers up towards the GPM, they're really quite tough.
Alexander Jachenko, in fact, is the Astana rider, not Janez Brajkovic. And look who is there behind. Giovanni Visconti. Well, that is a pretty good performance from him again. Very, very surprised to see him up there, Giovanni Visconti.
Yeah, I think this is slightly above where he usually rides around, and we saw that in the Giro as well. He was certainly getting better and better and better for every day, and he was sort of finding new grounds that he hasn't been on before. So yeah, but it's a good ride by him, no, regardless.
Well, he's one to watch on general classification as well, in the top 5 as it stands, and at the minute could be the man to go very, very close to the yellow jersey. At the minute, it would be Matthias Frank out of this group.
Yeah.
And of course, Visconti only 7 seconds behind Frank himself as well. Dan Martin still with the group. Visconti right at the back. His Movistar teammate and race winner last year, Rui Costa, is up the front. 81 is Jean-Christophe Perrault for Azur Desert. And the rider in the points jersey today, 114, is of course Bauke Mollema, who after yesterday's stage win said he was definitely looking for a podium place at the end of the week.
Yeah, I think he was too. Looking at Bauke Mollema, he seems to be labouring a bit, but he's got that kind of a riding style as well, where he doesn't look good on a bike. I'm not going to say that take that anything away from him, because he's a fantastic bike rider, but there are certainly guys that look really classy on a bike, and there are other guys who looks like they're labouring all the time and never really looks happy on a bike. But as long as he goes fast, who cares?
Face of concentration. You never know quite if it's suffering from Peter Sagan, but it's certainly a business face that he's got on today again.
Well, I can tell you he's not. He's in a bit of a. Well, so should we put it quite deep into the hurt locker? That would be, in terms of cycling language that we use when we ride around. The hurt locker is used quite a lot, and I think it's a good couple of meters into it.
Well, they have less than 3 kilometers now until they go over the top. Make that less than 2. 19.4 kilometers to go is the moment that we shall see the top of this climb. And as you said, Magnus, for those who might be switching on a little late, just remind the viewers how important it is to be right up there at the front as you begin this descent. Well,
I think you want to make sure that you actually take this descent from front row. It's going to be difficult to come past, it's difficult to brake, there's not really an awful lot of grip on the road, and the road is so narrow. You can look, this is basically a car width, and that's what we're dealing with on the way down as well. It's quite dirty in places, little sort of almost like drains going across the road in certain places as well. So you want to make sure that you don't blink for the next 5k by the time you get over the top of the King of the Mountain point, because you blink and you might find yourself tumbling down the vegetation.
The back wheel of Jachenko there at the back for Astana. This is the front wheel of the man at the front of the race at the moment. That's TJ van Garderen, today riding for Matthias Frank. We saw this in Dauphiné yesterday. Alberto Contador doing work for Mick Rogers ahead of the Tour.
Yeah, and I got to say, I lift my hat to those guys, the sort of outright leaders of any team who, when they're not on a good one, they decide to sort of pull back and go, okay, look, I've got teammates that are certainly clearly going slightly better than I am at the moment. Let's just, make sure that they get an opportunity to race as well, rather than just go, okay, I'm not on a good one, I'm just going to sit up and let go here. Clearly, TJ is riding very well, but maybe not quite as well as he was hoping yesterday, and it's nice to see that he's taking on a sort of we're talking about these super domestiques, but I think in this case he probably got one.
It certainly has. A lot of people talking about whether he should be Tour leader or not, despite Cadel Evans' excellent performance in the Giro d'Italia. I'm sure that will rumble on as we lead into France and to the beautiful Ile de Beauté, the Isle of Beauty, the island of Corsica that hosts the Tour start this year. Now then, Roman Kreuziger has something to say about all this. He suddenly comes to the front, and Matthias Frank is left on his own behind.
Around about 1 kilometer to go to the top here.
Sagan still where he's been exactly for the last 4 or 5 kilometers. Third wheel, not messing about, waiting and waiting, I'm sure, till they get to the top here. You're guessing that he'll be putting himself in a position to try and get down first?
Yeah, I would have thought so. There's no point for Sagan to sit behind anyone because he's out of this group. He's probably the fastest descender, and I would put him up there in the top, probably 3, 4 in the world in terms of descending capabilities. So why sit and wait?
Well, the cloud cover changing all the time. You can see just a few hundred meters to go to the top of this climb.
Looks like Kreuziger wants the King of the Mountain points.
Well, no surprise to see him going for that. His team will want something now. Sagan just quickly radioing in. Just pulling on the radio a moment ago. We'll be having a chat with his DS.
He was probably about 10k down the road.
I hope the radio signal arrives. It might not be such an easy thing with all the cloud cover we've had. Thankfully, the aeroplanes are up there so we can get the pictures to you.
Yeah.
That's also always a worry on these nasty, cloudy, murky days. So the top of the climb is here. King of the Mountains points, I think, will go to Roman Kreuziger. Now, who wants to be in charge on the way down? Sagan just taking a gel. Is that the right time to do it?
Yep, definitely. Definitely spot on, because he'll be needing that for the final sort of bit of this descent. And yeah, just gonna say, hold on to yourselves here though.
So 20 kilometers, or just under 20 kilometers to go. This is where everybody should hold on and hope for good things to happen. Yeah,
motorbike is going to have problems staying away from these guys on this, because they're going to have as bad a grip level as the bikes have, but the bikes will be able to sort of go on the brakes quicker. You see them, Kreuziger is on the brakes the whole way down here. He's really having to clear his rims, because if the moment you let go, then literally you can't stop again.
Well, one thing that we were told before you went out hastily to ride the course, we weren't actually going to bother because the weather was so bad today. We'd actually planned to ride it together this morning.
Yeah.
It was about two and a half hours until we came on air, and Swiss-German commentators came in to have a chat with us and said, look, guys, you've got to have a look at this descent. And you're starting to see already the first images of this. Look how much care these guys are having to take. Now, you've been on it, Magnus. These guys are out there. Apart from Sagan, is there anybody who could challenge him in terms of being as good technically on the bike?
No, I don't think so. You know, he's.
Or is there anybody you're really worried about here?
No, I don't think they need to worry about Peter Sagan in terms of general classification. If he rides away here now and gets gets a stage win, then you know why. There's no bother in terms of the overall. So you know, just be safe. Kreuziger, he's clearly taking a few risks and sort of pulling away together with Matthias Frank and Peter Sagan. But here you go. First guy down.
Ouch. And it is Michele Scarponi.
Yeah.
Climbing so well, not descending very well either. Guys looking behind, and with that happening, people have just realised that, oh, hang on, this might be a bit difficult.
Yeah.
I wonder how much they knew about this. Again, we saw the profile, didn't really get an insight into what this might be like until we spoke to the guys I was talking about a moment ago, the guys who work for Swiss-German television. That's the reason why you went to have a look. And again, how many of these guys will have had good recons and good reports about this descent? Recons,
no, but reports probably yes. You know, anyone, you know, sort of, if there's a couple of riders who know this particular road in the peloton, the word spreads quite quickly that look, it's a very dangerous descent. Watch out! It's going to be a bit scary, and you know, with that, you know, as the word travels, then everyone tends to sort of know what's going on, or at least you know it's going to be technically difficult.
44 seconds now, the difference back to Cameron Meyer. And the way this is going, it might well grow. I can tell you there have been 2 more abandons on the way up. Roberto Ferrari, after we saw him, climbed off, as did Frédéric Robert. So Heysdal, Ferrari and Robert abandoned already. We've seen a crash for Scarponi, and we're waiting on news of that. He didn't look too comfortable. He was holding his arm, which wasn't a good sign.
No, it never is really, and you know, It looks like they're being reasonably sensible here. You know, they're not really taking any crazy risk. It's fast, but it's still within the remit of being safe as such.
So no blame to the organisers whatsoever. It's a creative rather than a dangerous course, you'd say.
Well, I think it's borderline on the dangerous side. I certainly think it's, you know, that there would have been other places to do this, but because the riders are clearly doing it, you know, paying attention, at least on the front here. We've seen Scarponi go down, but you know, when it's wet, you usually have one or two guys who come a cropper. But what happens further down the descent? Here, Kreuziger can't see where he's going now because of the motorbike not being able to pull away from him.
A look of angst and, well, just 100% worry on his face there. He was not happy about that.
No, definitely not. And they're obviously cold and it's wet, and you know, with that you lose a bit of feel for the brakes, and with the brakes being wet, that's why Dan Martin coming up this climb. And straight away when you get into this part, it's around about 2 kilometers up to the sort of the next section of this descent. So, and it's quite a decent little grippy little sort of K.5 to 2 Ks.
BMC having a man in both groups. Frank in the front group, just behind them was TJ Van Garderen. This is Rui Costa in this group as well for Movistar, who also had Gio Visconti in the second group, remember. At the minute, it is Kreuziger who's being forced to do all the sight work for everyone else. Flicks his arms and wants Peter Sagan to take some responsibility now.
Yeah, Peter Sagan was obviously having a look to see whether he would see better with his glasses on or not, but never got him further than into his mouth.
I think the stage win is probably out of the minds of most riders here. It's just about getting down safely and seeing what can happen. No, a Lampre jersey, that is not Michele Scarponi, I'm afraid. That is Diego Ulissi. Scarponi not been seen since he was down. Still no word on race radio either.
No, definitely not.
In the meantime, it's the same 4 riders still up the front. They have a decent gap. We saw that time, not exactly in terms of seconds, but it's a good few hundred meters. This is Rui Costa and not Enrique Sanz, as it says on that graphic. Kreuziger alongside Matthias Frank, and of course the man with him is Peter Sagan. Matthias Frank, remember, 5 seconds behind Cameron Meyer. He is the virtual race leader here. So whatever Peter Sagan wants to do, Frank will be happy just to follow him.
Yeah, definitely. You know, the only person here is really just riding for a stage win is Peter Sagan. The other guys have got bigger aspirations than that.
Spilak at the front of this group. Jean-Christophe Perrault for Asher Dessert behind. As you said, there are little bits of ascent during this descent as well.
Yeah, just a little bit, but like I said, this part here is you come around that long right-hander going up here. It goes on for a little bit further, and it gets quite grippy, and then all of a sudden you've got a
TJ fan there. I'm afraid you might have to wait until the next group to see him.
Yeah.
Matthias Frank, the Swiss rider, is the BMC presence here. Kreuziger takes over as they go uphill again. 26 seconds now, look at that. And that has grown quickly. Yeah,
it has grown out quite quickly. I'm surprised that Matthias Frank and Da Costa don't seem to be taking too big a turns on the front. They're quite happy to let Roman Kreuziger and Sagan do the work.
Well, Rui Costa this time last year was already in the race lead. He took it on stage 2, carried it to the end. And on stage 3, he was being on the same podium as Peter Sagan. Sagan won the stage, and Costa took yellow. Costa at the minute is 40 seconds down. So again, a very, very good ride from him. He puts himself, basically by staying with this group, in a podium spot.
Yeah, he does. Tanget, he's trying to get himself back up there again, just really working quite hard.
Perrault on his wheel.
There's a couple of really good climbers in this group, but obviously they weren't quite as happy on the way down there. And the next section of descent is on on this kind of a width in terms of road, very fast. There's a couple of sort of long sweeping bends on it for the first sort of maybe 5 kilometers, and it's that becomes a sort of different type of technical ability again, because of you've got to just be able to lean the bike in, be very, very steady on your bike, use your brakes in the right positions, and just be able to feel the grip level of how far you can lean that bike over. And it's one of them things that can just go that little bit wrong unless you're really on top of your game.
Looking to be on top of their game now are these guys. The group in second position. The group we just saw a minute ago on the road is 27 seconds back, but the yellow jersey group of Cameron Meyer now 1 minute 24 behind and losing time all the time. Dan Martin now alongside Thibaut Pinot, really trying to drive this gap forward, as it is 28 seconds now back to this group, and they will not want it to grow anymore. Martin really putting the hammer down on the climb as they go over again and begin descending once more. Remember, today our destination is Meiringen. This is the longest stage of the 9-day Tour de Suisse this year. We saw Slovakian flan with a Slovakian flag at the top for Peter Sagan. It'll be he, they are hoping, crosses the line first when they get down to the bottom. Again, Kreuziger looking around nervously.
Yeah, I don't think he's got too much to worry about. I don't think anyone's going to really attack him down this mountain, because, you know, there's only so fast you can corner in the wet. And most of these guys are that technically good and capable that, you know, there might be one or two sort of, you know, like a Thor Hushovd, when he's on super form, he descends way faster than anyone else in the wet. I don't know, he must have glue on his tires or something that grips through wet.
Well, we have seen an attack. It's come from behind. Bauke Mollema has decided that too much time has been lost. And look at that, he's pedalling this down, never mind just holding on the brakes. 8th before today. Remember, he had those 20 penalty seconds yesterday. Is this a bit of a foolish time to try and make those 20 seconds up?
No, maybe not make it. You know, obviously you've got Matthias Frank in the front there. He needs to get back there, otherwise he's going to end up losing more time again. So he's in a position where he's got to, he really needs to hit the panic button almost.
Well, Bauke Mollema, yesterday press conference, I'll remind you, said he is targeting the podium here. It was only his second stage win yesterday, after a stage win on the Tour of Poland 3 years ago. But he has finished 5th previously here on the Tour de Suisse. It's a race he enjoys. And he's a rider who's been riding with increasing regularity throughout his careers. He's had a trajectory that I quite like. It's been nice and steady. He's improved bit by bit.
Yeah.
And here he is, showing some real form on the Tour de Suisse.
Yeah, it certainly does. It was quite interesting yesterday after the stage as well, up in Crans Montana. We went outside and had a look, and as we walked back to our car, we saw Bauke Mollema there. He's quite a tall, rangy fella. But the thing that I noticed the most was that he was actually riding the giant aero bike on the mountaintop finish. So clearly, Giant must have got something very, very right, and managed to make an incredibly light aerodynamic road bike, which is not an easy thing to do. And there you go, he's still on that bike today.
In the meantime, the group he's just left contains Visconti, Spilak, Kanga, Martin van Garderen, and Perrault, and also the other Frenchman, Thibaut Pinot, who's putting in another good ride in the last couple of days for Francis Desjeux. Another rider who's starting to slowly mature. And Gil Visconti, again keeping pace with this group. Kreuziger and Sagan. Sagan, the story of the day at the minute.
Yeah, I mean,
absolutely incredible.
There are a few riders who can out-sprint Mark Cavendish, and you know, to be able to climb with some of the best guys in the world as well is phenomenal. But you know,
not just that, we've seen him on the cobbles as well this spring.
We've seen him, yeah, exactly, on the cobbles, everything. But I mean, he's a rider that when he came through, he walked straight into you know, the top end of professional cycling. He's been there for some time now, and he's maturing for every year that goes by. He's now getting to the point where he can cope with a one-day classic, and I should say more one-day classic distances. And I'm sure this is not the end of Peter Sagan. He hasn't reached his full potential just yet. So, I mean, we'll say that he's an exciting rider, but I clearly, you can't emphasize that enough.
He's an absolute revelation in the sport, as far as I'm concerned. I'm sure most people at home will agree. So, Rui Costa, defending champion, takes over at the front of this descending group. 33 seconds the gap back to the main group. In between them, perhaps 5 or 6 seconds ahead of that group at the minute, we saw was Bauke Mollema, who had attempted to try and close the gap, but it is an ever-increasing and growing gap, as we can see. Low cloud today. We've still got to descend through quite a few. It's actually just hanging right over the town of Meiringen. Kreuziger for Saxo Tinkoff. Now Sagan coming to the fore. And these are the gaps. In fact, 34 seconds it is back to Bauke Mollema, who has 3 seconds on what they're now calling Group 3. Cameron Meyer, the yellow jersey, all the way back at 1 minute and 42 now. So I'm afraid that all you Australian fans who've stayed up late to watch him might be going to sleep a little disappointed tonight for the man from Western Australia. He's offered great entertainment over the first couple of days, but today it has just not been his day. And given these conditions, it's understandable why. Same for anybody out there. Still no news from Michele Scarponi, I'm afraid. But we haven't seen him, which is not a good sign.
No, it certainly isn't a good sign. And also we haven't heard any more news about Ryder Hejjedal either, who's obviously in hospital getting looked after in there, so that's not a good day.
Bauke Mollema, just 3 seconds ahead of the group behind him. 35 back from the 4-man lead group. This is Gio Visconti, just in front of him in the white and blue of Frances Dejeus, Thibaut Pinot. TJ Van Garderen, 5 or 6 metres in front of him. Again, traffic islands just to add to the stress. Thankfully, they're well signalled by the police motorbikes that have stopped on the way down. Yet again, more twisting, more turning, and there's still quite a bit to descend. Look at that all the way down the airport. Yeah,
you're turning left in this junction here, and it's a bit of a tricky corner, I found anyway. Obviously, I rode with open roads and traffic, but it's slightly off camber as you're coming down, and this is where it starts getting a little bit technical. So going through those banners, all of a sudden you got a stretch of road which really accelerates quite quickly, and then into a couple of a right switchback and then a left-hander, and after that left-hander then the road basically opens up. It goes pretty much straight on for the next 4 kilometers, or well, 3 kilometers anyway, and it's 13% downhill as well. So I was looking down at my speedo and I was doing probably around about 90-95 kilometers an hour on my own.
That's not good in the wet, certainly.
Well, it's interesting.
Well, Bauke Mollema, 31 seconds back. Those 3 or 4 seconds shaved off that gap might be, or might have had something to do with the fact that they all took it very, very carefully around that corner there. And they can afford to do so, we hope they do so. Certainly do not want any more men on the ground here. Now, Matthias Frank trying to put on the pace. Thibaut Pinot in the meantime struggling to keep the pace. Visconti looking behind to see where the Frenchman is. Daniel Kanget still in there. Simon Spilak as well, who is an excellent performer on Swiss roads year in, year out, despite his young age. And Mollema's gap has become better, willed on by the group of soldiers there in the corner.
Yeah, he's giving it everything he's got here and really taking a few risks in the corners as well, so.
Look at that.
Not a position I recommend in the dry, even less so when it's wet.
It's almost hard to watch when you see him doing that. Sagan just being pushed forward out the way there by Rui Costa. That is to go through the 5 kilometre to go banner. Yeah. 33 seconds the gap. Big hairpin turn here. It's pretty clear now, Magnus, the winner's going to come from these 4.
Yeah, I would have said so, definitely. And this is where you come around the next left-hander, and then all of a sudden you've got this this nice little sign that says 13%. Have fun.
If he doesn't say that, somebody should go and graffiti on it.
Yeah. Might have actually been one more switchback before we get to that point.
Peter Sagan once more. Quick talk on the radio.
Yeah, I think he just wants to know the time gap back to Bauke Mollema, and also back to the rest of the group, just to see how much time he's got to mess about when he gets down onto the flat and you know, play tactical games. Because even though Peter Sagan is fast, if he gets jumped by anyone, then all of a sudden, you know, he's being put in a position where he's got to chase. So
here's that big turn again. And this is where it gets steep. There's the sign, 13%. I believe you now. 36 seconds all the way back to Bauke Mollema. 39 back to Group 3, which is the big group that contains the likes of TJ van Garderen. Nigh on 2 minutes all the way back to Cameron Meyer. We wait for the rest of the riders to take on this corner. First is Mollema at 34 seconds. The Dutchman, now 26 from Groningen, riding for Blanco, soon to become Belkin. And look at this, Sagan now has decided that it is time to put the pace on, and everybody has to follow.
yeah, definitely. It'd be nice to see the speed of the motorbike here, actually, to see what kind of pace they're doing, but it's certainly travelling quickly.
Well, there you go. Just under 90 km/h. The red light on, going too fast. And that is Bauke Mollema's speed, with the gap increasing up front. Just add on 2 or 3 for Peter Sagan and company.
Yeah.
I think you could tell just how fast they were going. We seem to go from 5 kilometres to go to 3 kilometres to go in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
So Sagan in front.
And there literally isn't a corner here where you have to worry about anything either. It's flat out all the way down until you come out onto the main road with about 1.5 kilometres to the finish line. So,
can anybody beat Peter Sagan? That is the question here.
The only thing
to go.
The only thing it's got to be, I think, if one of these guys goes on a bit of a flyer and takes you know, an attack coming from behind when Peter Sagan is taking a turn. But we've seen in the past people trying to do that, and because he's got such an acceleration on him, he literally, even if they come in, you know, 5 kilometres an hour faster past him, and he reacts to that, they literally don't only get a metre, and he's back onto their wheels at the same pace. You know, that's how fierce his acceleration is. So I think they're going to struggle to really do one on him.
Matthias Frank at the moment is going to be the new race leader. 37 seconds, a gap growing all the time now to Bauke Mollema. Just outside 1 kilometre to go. Sagan perhaps just taking a deep breath here and getting himself ready. Rui Costa. Everybody's starting to look around at each other now. Sagan goes out in front, looks behind, anybody going to follow him? Kreuziger decides to go as well. Again, you get the feeling that it's not going to be too much of a problem for these 3 guys behind Peter Sagan.
No, what
if
you don't
he takes the stage.
What you don't want to do either is leave Peter Sagan get 20-30 metres like that, because all of a sudden he's just gone.
Oh, we saw that in Gent-Wevelgem earlier on this year.
Yeah.
Well, Rui Costa decided to go with him. And Matthias Frank wants to close the gap as well. So important for these 3 guys, they don't lose seconds on each other.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it looks like Frank is actually hurting for quite a bit. 500 minutes to go here now. Rui Costa has a go.
So here comes Rui Costa on the right-hand side. He is wearing the dark blue jersey of Movistar. On his wheel, and big favourite still, Peter Sagan. We wait for the real sprint to be launched. 300 metres to go. Kreuziger behind, Costa out in front, and Sagan is about to go and launch himself. Here comes Peter Sagan. I can almost guarantee that nobody will be able to live with him. Sagan out in front, Costa behind, and it will be the Slovakian Sagan, just as he did last year, to win stage 3 of the Tour de Suisse. Victory number 11 of the season, 15 for Cannondale, and what a magnificent ride that is from Peter Sagan. The news race leader is there as well, Matthias Frank. It's all changed, Magnus, on the Tour de Suisse.
Yeah, it's a big change today as Bauke Mollema comes in here towards the finish line, and I've got to take my hat off to him. Gutsy ride, definitely. You know, he doesn't get that much time on the rest of the group, but he keeps himself up there and puts a little bit of distance into a few of the riders that he's going to compete against on the bigger mountain stages.
Bauke Mollema then cheered on by the Swiss flag-waving crowd. A quite wonderful stage. He comes 40 seconds back after the winner, and he'll gain 3 or 4 little seconds on a few of his riders there. Gio Visconti leading that second group over the line. But this man's the winner on the day. Yet another win for Peter Sagan, and yet another demonstration of his amazing, diverse and strong ability. He can do just about everything there is. Yes, he wasn't great yesterday. Perhaps, though, he thought that today was going to be the day. He lost 11 minutes before he came into today. Did it matter, though? What is big, though, for this man, what is big for Switzerland, what is big for BMC, is the fact that they, Matthias Frank, have the race lead, and he can afford a smile as the new yellow jersey wearer. So coming in behind Cameron Meyer, count down the clock in seconds. They've done a decent job to keep it at the 1 minute 30 or so that it was 5 or 10 kilometres ago. Diego Lisi is going to come in that group, and he will have to contend with the news that Michele Scarponi is either out or has lost a heck of a lot of time for Lampre as well. Simon Geschke, who's had another decent day, leads them over. And Cameron Meyer, for the moment, coming in. Michael Albertini, another man to applaud for his effort and endeavour as the day's gone on. He'll get a big applause as he comes across the line here, the Swiss. However, doesn't take the win that he would have wanted.
Now I can see the difference here in speed by Peter Sagan. He basically did 15 pedal strokes. And like I like to say, you know, he basically won that with 1 foot in the bottle cage.
He was almost playing with Rui Costa as they came into the last couple of 100 metres.
I mean, when you got someone with that kind of an acceleration playing against, you know, mountain climbers, then what can you do? But the incredible thing is that he managed to get himself up over the top of that climb in such good condition and right near the front end. I mean, no one was going to drop him on the way down here. And literally, by the time you get to the finish line, it's only going to be one way.
Sensational Sagan wins ahead of Rui Costa, the reigning champion of the Tour de Suisse. Romain Kreuziger in third, Frank fourth, Mollema fifth, Visconti yet again in the top 10. Martin, Pinot, Kanga and Jean-Christophe Perrault making up the top 10 too. Well, we've been promised nice weather for tomorrow, so I hope that that sight that's on your picture isn't one that we see repeated tomorrow. Now, when all the sums and additions have been done, this is what we're left with on general classification today. Matthias Frank, the leader of the race, 23 seconds ahead of Romain Kreuziger. Saxo Bank riding so well up that climb, so it's going to be a very big week for him. Rui Costa and Movistar in third and fourth, with Visconti just behind him. But all the celebration for those guys, and a big thank you to TJ Van Garderen for the work that he did on the climb, so vital for Matthias Frank being able to take that Tour de Suisse leader's jersey. Well, they'll be coming across the line for a while here. A lot of riders coming across, led by Lars Petter Nordhaug. A lot who have been pretty much absent from what we've seen in a lot of this race so far. Get to see their protagonists really show good strength. A man who's shown strength, endurance and everything more today has been Peter Sagan. And Kreuziger next to him. Kreuziger, of course, who we last saw behind the podium when he won Amstel Gold.
Yeah, just looking at Kreuziger there, it looks like he's got a bit of a bruise or a cut on his right shoulder.
I wonder if he went down with the Hayestar group earlier on. That is a possibility. He was back in the peloton then. He certainly wasn't in the break.
No, it's.
We have no recorded images, by the way. That's why we're suggesting it as a possibility.
Yeah, it might have been so. And I couldn't really tell anything of his on his jersey either. You know, it didn't look like it was cut or anything like that. But he's certainly got a bit of.
Had a big graze on his shoulder.
Yeah, road rash, I was going to say.
Well, fans young and old will have enjoyed Matthias Frank's performance here today. BMC Racing Team, of course, an American team, but must remind you that they are very much here with a Swiss heart. Here's Edvard Vorganov. He was in the original 18-man break earlier on today. And Russian champion just going to ride over in his own time. Well, jersey presentations coming up. We've got Bauke Mollema, who will just about stay in the points jersey. Enrique Sanz in the sprints jersey. Matthias Frank already said in the yellow leaders jersey, and here he is on his way in to take that jersey today. Looked like it was hurting him, as you said, Magnus, right at the end. Did well to hang on, and taking the same time as the winner in the end, Peter Sagan. And if you can hear a big cheer at home, that's because Matthias Frank had just been announced to the crowd as the new leader of the race. Pat on the back for Roman Kreuziger from him. Might have him to thank for helping drag him across the line in the last few hundred metres.
Yeah, maybe so, but you know, both of them has got obviously you know, a good stage where they put time into the rest of their rivals, and you know, it's a good day's work, really. Not a nice day's work, but certainly a good one.
Hard day's work for the guys still coming across the line. It's clearing up a bit down the valley. Shame he couldn't do that a little earlier on.
That's what I said when I was riding around the circuit earlier as well. You know, it started in sunshine, and by the time I got about 10 k's out, it started raining.
Not a nice day. Again, we've been promised better weather over the next couple of days. There's Georg Preidler, right, who we saw briefly going on the attack on that climb on the left-hand side for Argos. Shimano.
You can see one of the Argos riders there on the left of your screen just lift his rain cape up. It's actually quite a hefty fine if you don't have your number visible as you go across the finish line. So it's one of them things that as a professional bike rider you end up just learning to do.
Happy day for BMC, not so happy for Philippe Gilbert. With the rate they went up at the end, you would have doubted that he'd be able to hang on anyway without his little mechanical. He eventually got a new bike, though, unable to ride in with his BMC colleague.
Yeah.
So we saw it briefly before when the rain was happening, but that is the Giesbachfalle, the biggest waterfall in the area. So saw the big hole in the rock as well with the river going through it. That was the Alfbergschlucht. And there's Sherlock himself.
That's the man I saw earlier.
It's another cigarette break. Certainly looks like he's been somewhere sunny anyway. Not here. The Sherlock Holmes Museum and Hotel, amongst other things, worth a visit when you're in Meiringen. I'll tell you what we've got to do as well, try meringue before we leave tonight.
Yeah, why not?
So confirmation of the jerseys has just been brought through to us. Say that again, Matthias Frank will be in yellow. Kreuziger, in fact, has taken the King of the Mountains jersey. Points leader, Bauke Mollema still, and of course the sprints leader stays the same after Enrique Sanz Unsue took those points yesterday. So just awaiting those presentations to begin. We'll also try and bring you a word with the stage winner on the day, of course, Peter Sagan, who hopefully will get a word with in English. He speaks very, very good English. It's generally English or Italian with him.
If not, your Italian is good enough to translate this anyway, isn't it?
We'll get there either way. So almost 10 minutes after Peter Sagan rolled across, they still continue to crawl across the line. Nice to see everybody still waiting for them as well. Well, fans from all over Europe, you can see, have come here. It's not just the Swiss. And everybody enjoying the day out. As they generally do in this part of the world. They come from Spain and Portugal as well. As we mentioned yesterday, in Switzerland, in particular the Valais region, where yesterday there's a huge Portuguese working migrant community, and they were painting the roads with the name of Rui Costa. They'll be happy with his performance today on the Tour de Suisse, but I think Peter Sagan's going to have to find room in his luggage for one of those giant cowbells.
Luckily the teams have got big buses, so
tend to give it out to winners of various sports that are contested here. Now let's go and hear from Sagan.
Peter Sagan, non è la prima volta che ha dimostrato che non sa soltanto
It's not the first time that you've demonstrated you're a good climber.
In Svizzera, com'era questo giro?
Sì, oggi sono sorpreso che
today I surprised myself.
Anche prima di tappa abbiamo parlato con direttori così che oggi
well, before the stage we talked about that it was going to be very, very difficult, but if I had a chance with the sporting director.
4-5, sì, no, di più corridori, però in discesa siamo
well, if there were 4 or 5 or
poi
even more left, I had to go down first. When we got to the descent.
Molto bene, sono molto contento che potevo
and of course, in the end of the day, I'm very, very happy to be able to pull off the win.
Facile no, perché
it wasn't easy, of course.
La salita che abbiamo fatto, ho sentito
the climb was very, very difficult, and I really felt it in the legs.
Alla fine siamo andati un po' via con Rui
in the
Costa,
end, well, with Rui Costa and a couple of others who managed to go away from the rest, and I won the sprint. Well, congratulations indeed for him, and this was his sprint again, if you can call it that, really, in inverted commas. It was too easy, really. He knew he'd won a good 50 metres before the line. But again, he was the only one with really something to take from winning the stage today.
And the scary thing is that that's not even a full pressure sprint from Peter Sagan, and he still put, you know, a good 15-20 metres into Rui Costa before he sits up and puts his arms in the air.
Peter Sagan surprised even himself as he comes onto the podium, drying out with that towel tucked in underneath the jersey. Cannondale rider. He's going to take the prize of the Gruyere alongside the cowbell. So he's quite a few things to fit in his luggage, and Sherlock's along to give him the prize as well. Well, if he did his job right, he'd have known who'd won before we even turned up today.
Exactly.
The mystery of Meiringen solved by Sherlock and Peter Sagan. And a very happy one too. Well, they'll be sick of the sight of him. They saw him 4 times last year on the podium. 4 up the 9 stages taken home. He's going to be annoying everybody on the bus tonight with that, isn't he? Peter Sagan then ahead of Rui Costa, Romain Kreuziger, Matthias Frank, Bauke Mollema, Visconti, Martin Pinot Kanga and Jean-Christophe Perrault making up the top 10. 46 seconds separating 1st and 10th on the day after a very, very long and difficult 204.9 kilometers. It is the Tour de Suisse, and we're going to have a Swiss leader. Listen to that, announced with great gusto onto the podium. This is the race that he usually excels in. Last year was the best Swiss rider here. He's had mountain prizes, he's had other jerseys as well. He now leads his home tour, and that is a great, great moment for BMC. So just as the announcer says, a Swiss man leading the Tour de Suisse. What a very good day for the organisers indeed. And well, with the stages we have to come, you might well hang on to it for a few days as well. We have possible sprint days coming up. Certainly easier in terms of climbing, and let's hope weather as well.
Yeah, and I think looking at the way that he's climbing, you know, he's certainly a very, very strong contender for the overall by the time we get to the final stage.
One to enjoy for Matthias Frank. He'll try to stock up on his energy reserves as the week goes by and attempt to keep his lead. His lead is 23 seconds as it stands then. Rui Costa in 3rd place, Visconti in 4th, Pinot in 5th. The rest over a minute back. His teammate TJ van Garderen down at 1 minute and 39. Kreuziger, his closest rival, at 23 seconds. Well, remember, Ryder Heidel out today. We're still awaiting news on Michele Scarponi. But the way we looked, didn't look like he would be anywhere near. He certainly lost a lot of time if he came across the line. Roman Kreuziger will be dressed in different colour tomorrow. That colour will be the red of the King of the Mountains. Now, looking at Roman's chin here, he's also got a bit of a graze on the right-hand side of his chin. Correlates with what we saw on his right shoulder. So it looks as though he may well have been down today.
Yeah, it certainly does look like it's been on the ground.
Again, just as he turns around here, look at the red mark on his chin. Yeah, that's a bit of road rash. He's got some on his cheek as well, a bit of swelling. He's not had a good day in terms of crashes, but that's a very, very brave ride then, if that's the case. We saw him at the front on that descent quite a lot. He had a lot of work to do today. No wonder he was pulling faces of almost fear at times. You can see the blood seeping through onto the S in his jersey. So it's been a hard day for Roman Kreuziger, and he leads the mountains classification by 4 points from Matthias Frank and Domenico Pozzovivo. So great Swiss day, good day for the Czech Republic, and it's not a bad day for the Dutch either.
Scarponi's actually come in at 50th place at 6 minutes and 45 seconds today, so at least he's gone back on his bike, and that usually means that he's kind of okay.
Certainly to get down that descent anyway from where he crashed very, very close to the top, let's not forget.
Yeah.
So no longer a real challenger for GC unless he produced the ride of his life, but of course there are stage wins to go for, and he, if he can climb as strong as he has been doing, will be a contender. This is Bauke Mollema, still the leader in the points classification. I can tell you he has just a single-point lead ahead of Matthias Frank. Roman Kreuziger a good 7 points back as well. Cameron Meyer still up there on that points classification level with Peter Sagan and Thibaut Pinot. This was Mollema in action today. Some very, very brave riding from him towards the end of it. And his reward was just a few seconds from his rivals on GC as well. Those, of course, remember, he lost on the penalty yesterday. That's confirmation of his 1 point lead. Let's have a look then about where we go tomorrow. It's round and about, so missing out a few passes, and in the end taking the flatter route over to Box. We head out towards the lake, and then again just avoiding all these peaks and passes that are around Interlaken, the place between two lakes. After the lake of Brienz, we head inland yet again, round through Langnau. Not too much climbing involved, certainly as far as Tour de Suisse is concerned. There's always a bit of up and down. Intermediate sprints, we've got a second category at Ring, a fourth category in towards Criens as well. And then it gets nice and flat, and we may have our first bunch arrival. Depends, and we'll wait to see who we are, finishing yet again by another lakeside airport in the town of Vaux. Stage 4 to come tomorrow at the same time on the Tour de Suisse.
Nowhere.